Hello YouTube peeps, we're back for part 3 in this series of videos on the 633A. We're going to do the final assembly on this. Hope I got you a good camera angle here. In part 1 we showed you how to take apart this transaxle, and most importantly we showed you how to get the differential out, because most people will just be locking this differential, and that's as far as they're going in this transaxle. But in case you went all the way into it and you need to figure out where all the parts go, we're going to take it nice and slow, and I'm going to show you each part as we go along and the orientation of how it goes and stuff like that. So let's get started. First of all, you want your input shaft, and there we go, it's our input shaft. Right now we only have the gear for first and reverse on here, but this is pretty obvious how it goes. This is where your pulley rides, and that's where your keyway is. Making sure I got it in the frame here. I got such a extreme camera angle, I got to make sure I keep things where you can see it. But the way I got my case oriented right now, this is where the differential goes, and this is where the input goes, this is where your shifter hole is, okay? And this is the half of the case with the input shaft, obviously. If you haven't taken yours apart yet, that's how you want it. You want the input or the input pulley facing down, okay? So we're going to take this with our first and reverse gear on it, and we're just going to slide it down into place. There we go. Now, there is a pretty particular order that you need to assemble this, because in several places gears kind of overhang each other. So, and I will be showing you that. Now, can you change the order up a little bit? Possibly, but I'm going to show you the order that I figured out works best for me. Okay. Now, we do have the second and third gear that slides over this, but we're going to hold on a second. We're not going to put that on yet. But most importantly, I need to back up, because there's a washer that goes here. So where's that washer? And here we go. So that washer right there. Now there's I got my just stack of washers over here. There's a few different sizes, so you want to make sure you get the correct size. Of course, it has to slide over there. That's number one. That's the easy part. But it doesn't. You don't want it to have too much clearance, because that means that's too big a washer and it goes somewhere else. So with our washer on there, now our input shaft goes back down in there. Okay, and once again we're going to hold off on that second, third gear. The next thing we're going to do is get our Holy shaft and our first gear in here. So where's that Holy shaft? And here's our Holy shaft. Once again, we need to find the washer that goes on here. Okay, that's too small. That fits on there pretty good. So now I'm just going to temporarily lay this in here, because let me show you something. Let me grab that first gear real quick. Where's first gear? And here's our main shaft with our first gear on it. Now this does have to be taken apart. I just happen to have it all together. So what, and this is pretty easy. If you'll notice, big gear on the bottom, and then you drop all the gears like that. You got your first gear on the bottom. I just happen to have it all assembled, but we are going to have it taken apart. If you'll notice, it's pretty easy. You got your big gear, and then as you go up, the gears get smaller. Okay, so let's just take all these gears off. You got a spacer right here, and then you've got this gear right here. I believe this is your reverse gear, and that gets us to our first gear and our shaft. We're going to just set our shaft right here for now. Okay, on the first gear, you've got this other gear on the bottom, just kind of made onto it. I think they machined this out of one piece. But that smaller gear goes towards the bottom, and it drives this Holy gear. Okay? Duh. Goes like that. Okay? Now, these kind of have to, with the reverse gear already in here, which I don't see why, unless you're, you know, replacing this gear or whatever, you don't have to take this gear out. And I got the gear in there. So with that gear in there, you just kind of have to feed these in together. And I still got my washer on the bottom. I need to find the washer for this gear. So stay. And I'm going to borrow the shaft. And that's it right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay that one in the case. Okay. So, like that. You come over here, and see how I'm kind of sliding this first gear underneath the reverse gear? And I've got it sandwiched in between the holy gear there like that. Nope, needs to go like that. Okay. Come over here and you drop the holy shaft in. And then you slide your first gear into place, and I just stick my finger down in the hole here to kind of line that washer up. And once we got that done, this is your main shaft that goes through the first gear, and you've got a slot here. Now I'm not sure that it makes a difference which way it goes, but on my particular one, and it might be due to just some wear on these splines, but I can't get it in upside down. If I try to switch the order, it'll start to spline and then it kind of locks up. So just pay attention when you take it apart. But if you already did take it apart, it should be that little cut, that little slot goes up. You get it in here and you got to get it splined with the gear, and drop it down in there. And I just kind of take a quick eyeball, make sure my washer didn't pop out. And I can't really see the washer, but I'm looking just to make sure that I don't see the washer, if that makes sense. I can see it if I lift the gear up. It's in there. So we're good to go there. Okay. Now we can start assembling this main shaft. And we want to take our next biggest gear. And these two gears are really close. This is reverse gear, and then this is also, then the other one is second gear. Okay? And they are really close in the tooth count, but if you hold them like that, you can see, I think the reverse gear has like one or two more teeth on it. So the bigger gear is going to go towards the bottom, okay? And that just happens to follow our shift pattern. Reverse and first are on the same leg of the shift pattern. You just slide that gear down there in place, and you see how it meshes with the reverse gear. Hopefully you can see that. And then you take your second gear and it goes down into place. Okay, now this is where we got to start paying attention to our assembly order. There's that spacer. We're going to go ahead and put that on there. But we are going to pause for just a second. I think I want to get my shift fork in there for first and reverse. So let me grab that shift fork real quick. And here we have our shift fork for first and reverse. Now this transmission has 3 shift forks, one for first and reverse, one for second and third. It goes right along with this one, and we'll show you that here. And then you've got another shift fork for your high-low. We take a second here. Oh, can't go that way. That's right, it goes over here. Okay. So this is how it needs to be oriented. And you can tell these shift forks apart. The ones for first and reverse and second and third, they just have one rail. Okay. And the one for first and reverse has 2 separate forks on it. Okay. And that is because we're going to go ahead and take the shaft back out. Still got the washer on it. Because look at how the shift fork captures that gear. Okay, it just sandwiches that gear in between those 2 forks. Okay, so now we can take this input shaft along with this fork, get the input shaft lined up, get the fork lined up in its hole. Now with this fork in here, I left the transmission in neutral before I disassembled it. I could manually move this fork, but it's got a detent ball in there, so I don't really want to mess with it. So with it in neutral, it's holding this first and reverse gear up about halfway, which is what we want. Okay. Now then, our next shift fork is our second and third shift fork, and if you notice, it just has the 1 fork. Okay. This is our gear for second and third, and if you'll notice, the shift fork just slides right between the 2 gears. Okay, See how there's that little spot for it, that little slot? Boom. Okay. So as we come in here and we go to line this gear up, of course this fork is going to be up in the air, and we're going to get this gear started on the input shaft. And I'm going to think for a second. Yes, this is the order you want to do it. We got one more gear to stack on this main shaft, but this gear goes on next, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to get this gear in there. And we had to wait till now to put this gear in there because this gear would have interfered. So that's what I was talking about. There's a little bit of an order. You kind of have to jump around just a little bit. So just to kind of recap, with our input shaft in there, we took our first gear alone with this Holy shaft. It's the Holy shaft because it's got the gear with the holes in it. Excuse me. We kind of had to put that in there together, and then we had to, you know, align this first gear with that little washer, and then we stuck the main shaft in, and then we partially stacked our main shaft. But we stopped with one gear to go, and now we're putting on our second and third gear. So we line that up with the input shaft, line our fork up with this little home, and ta-da. Now then, I'm going to turn this just for a second so you can see how the slots and the shift forks line up. That's what you want. If you're looking at it from the top, it doesn't look like it's lined up because these are different heights. But what you got to pay attention to is right here. As long as it's like that, you've got the forks lined up. Just kind of wiggle them, make sure that everything's seated. Okay, and once again, it's holding this gear kind of halfway in the neutral position. Okay, so right now only our input shaft turns, and kind of wondering why it's trying to catch anything at all. Let's take a second and kind of look at things. May have this. I think I do. I think I've got this one gear upside down. So let's reposition this for a second. I'm not going to edit this out. This is why you got to take your time and check things as you go. So let's slide this back out of there. Okay. There's our spacer. I believe this gear goes like this. And then our spacer. And then our second and third gear. Goes back in. Now, see how that's nice and quiet, nothing's rubbing or interfering. And that is turning freely. I believe that's correct. No. Once again. No, I don't want to take the whole input shaft out. No, I may have to. That washer back where it goes. Okay. I believe I had the washer in the wrong place, or that spacer. And once again, I'm not going to edit this out. This is why you just kind of take your time. Now, I've had this transmission apart several times, re-videoing this a couple times, and just, you know, cleaning it out real good and everything else, and then painting it. And the last time I took it apart was about a week ago, and I just threw everything into like one little plastic storage box, whatever you call them. So there we go. That's more like it. Okay. Now then, at this point, this is where your third gear comes into play. Okay. It slides down, and everything is still cool. We're in neutral, so we turn the input shaft and nothing else happens. If this second and third gear goes down, then second gear engages. If it slides up, then third gear engages. Okay? Now then, we're going to have some washers to put in place. That's too big. That's just right. That's too big. just right. A little on the big side. Am I missing something? I think. Alright, we're just going to come back to that here in a second. This is your high-low shaft. Okay? But let's take a pause for a second. Okay. Once you get this much assembled, this is the actual transmission part of this transaxle, along with this Holy shaft giver, which is kind of like a transfer shaft. But this, for argument's sake, is the actual 3-speed transmission. Okay. Now, before we put the high-low shaft or the other shaft in here, which is another transfer shaft, we'll get to that here in a second. The next step is to put our differential in here. Okay. And I'm going to blow that off real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm interrupting the video. At this point of the assembly, I wanted to point out, if you were just locking the differential, this is where you would be. You would put the differential in next, like you're going to see in the video, and then the other two parts of the transaxle assembly. Okay, so when you're seeing this spot right here of the assembly, where the transmission part of the transaxle is assembled, but this other part over here is not yet, that's where you will be. If you're just pulling the differential out, you still have to get you still have to get the high-low shaft out, and you still have to get that transfer shaft out that has the pinion gear on it. So you put your differential in, and then you put the high-low shaft in, and then you put that transfer shaft in. Okay, let's get you back to the video. And we're back. And this is our differential. And this is very important. You've got two of these washers right here. They got the little ears on them. Okay, one on top of the differential, one on the bottom. The ears go towards the case. So in this first one, it goes down towards the case. Okay, I hope you can see that real clearly. I'm just going to go ahead and set it in place, sort of. There we go. And here's our differential with our wonderful drop-in locker, thanks to Richie Rich Overdrive. There's a separate video on the installation of this locker. Now, another thing I want to point out is I've got all of the seals out of this case right now. I took the axle seals out because I'm going to wait till it's all assembled and bolted back together, and then I'm going to install the seals. Okay, so this goes in, and I need to reposition my case. I got a hole in the table here so the axle shaft can pass through it. And there we go. Okay. Turn this. Righty. Got you repositioned a little bit so you got the best possible view. Okay, now with the differential in, with that tanged washer towards the case, we need to drop our high-low shaft in there. Along with this gear right here. And I believe this gear goes on top. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get these splines lined up. Just kind of, turn, shake, and it'll pop on there. Now we're ready for our shift fork for our high-low. And this shift fork, it's high-low because it's got two shafts or pins going through it, if you will. Okay, and then one of these has a hole at the end. That's where your shifter attaches to. Okay, so this is just a single fork. Why is that? Okay, it's just turning inside there, no problem. That's tight. This part right here does unscrew from the fork, so I'm pretty sure I tightened it last time I messed with it. Yeah, we're on there good. Okay, single fork goes in between the two gears. Okay, and then we need to find our washer, so let's take this fork back out for a second. Okay, that's too small. Let's drop that on the ground and get it all dirty, because why not? Oh, that's too big. There we go. That's the right size. Okay, and I'll get that other washer here in a second. I see exactly where it went. Shift fork goes in like that. we start the shift fork shaft first. We kind of have to give it a little wiggle, and then let the whole shaft and gears and everything fall down in place like that. Okay. That gear goes on top. Alrighty. Yeah. We're in high range right now because that shifter was left in high range, which is fine. Okay. Moving along. Let me grab this other washer real quick. Okay. Next, we have this transfer shaft slash pinion gear shaft. This is the gear that drives the bull gear on the differential. Okay. So we need to find that washer, and it's going to be one of these bigger ones. I believe it's this biggest one. Yes, it is. Okay. That's going to go in next. Just holding the washer. Now, alternatively, you can go ahead and just lay the washer down in the case, and that might actually be a little easier. Just make sure you get it lined up with everything. And now our shaft with this pinion gear down. Line it up, line it with the bull gear, and ta-da, there we go. Okay, we're almost there. We have almost got this thing assembled. Now, if you notice, there's a little spacer collar that goes on top of that gear. We've only got one gear left. This gear right here. And I've heard it called a top hat gear, so that's what I've started calling it, is a top hat gear. Okay? This gear right here on the high-low shaft drives this top hat gear. Okay? And in my second video, if you're interested, I show all of the different gear reductions in this transmission, and I show the different rotations of the shaft, so I'm not going to do that again. If you're interested in any of that information, go see part 2. And then I found the washer. It goes right there. So that just leaves us with two washers. Put a washer at the bottom of that one. Put a washer at the bottom of that one. Oh, okay, yeah, washer for the top of that. Boom. Our washer count comes out perfect. Got a washer at the bottom of every shaft and the top of every shaft. Okay? The only washer left is this other tanged washer, or the washer with the ears on it. Okay? That goes at the top of the differential. Once again, ears towards the case, or in this case, up. Okay? Okay, we're now ready to put the other side of the case on, but hold on. A gasket. We need a gasket. Unfortunately, it's hard or impossible to find this gasket. I think I found it on small engine parts, or Jack small engine parts, something like that. But it was going to take a while to get here, and it was like, I don't know. I just made my own. I got on Amazon, and I got me some of this high temperature gasket material. I got 2 rolls of it. That's why this one's still all sealed up. And I just laid the empty case on top of it, traced around it, and then kind of punched the holes. And then I just happen to have this tool right here. I'm not even sure what this is for. Is this may be a tire tool? I don't know, but I use that to kind of ream the holes out. And there's lots of good videos on YouTube to show you how to make your own gaskets. So, gasket fits on there. Now, on these 633s, it's been said that some can run without a gasket, but others, some units need this gasket because it acts kind of like a shim. Now, I think I could have got away with just using gasket maker because I've dry assembled this before and put the case back together with no gasket, and everything still turned just fine. But to be extra cautious, I just went ahead and made myself a gasket. Now, before I put the other part on here, I'm going to apply just a very, very thin coat of RTV. So I'm going to take this gasket back off. I'm going to apply a very thin coat of RTV, and I'm going to do that off camera. So, and just like that, I'm done. I've also put a small thin layer on the other case half. So we're ready to sandwich this thing, put it back together. Got that other case half sitting right here. Now, just looking at this case and the way I got this washer right here oriented, it should land right between that. Put my finger right in that fresh silicone, just barely. So, I'm going to kind of grab this by the axle tube And that's what's going to get started first. So get that lined up with that bushing that's in there. And then we're just going to slowly slide it down. I'm catching that shaft for the brake drum. That's helping us get lined up. Now we're going to catch those dowel pins. And something's not lined up. I'm going to try just a little bit of gentle persuasion. Trying not to scratch my pretty paint, and that is it. We are together. It's time to start putting some bolts in it. Gave all my washers a little bath and carburetor cleaner, or not carburetor cleaner, brake cleaner. So let's get those all out on the table. It goes bolt with a lock washer, and then from underneath, lock washer, then a nut. Let me get this all bolted up. I'll probably speed this up, or I'll just cut to when I'm done. But it's just nuts and bolts. Nuts and bolts. Alright, with all the nuts and bolts started, I'm going to use my little electric ratchet. Use my little electric ratchet and run them all down. I'm not going to tighten them, I'm just going to get them down to where they start to seat. I'm going to kind of move around a little bit as I do this. I'm actually kind of lightly seating the case. I can feel it, but that's fine. I'm jumping around. Got it all kind of lightly seated. So I'm going to let this sit here for about 15-20 minutes, and then I'll put the final torque on it. Okay, we've let this sit for a good, I don't know, 40 minutes or so. So let's do a final torque, if you will, on these bolts. I'm going to actually get out a torque wrench. And we are going to start with about 20 foot-pounds and see how that feels. That may actually be a little bit much. Let's go with about 17 foot-pounds. I'm going to go nice and slow, and if it feels too tight, then I'm going to change this. Yeah, we're going to go a little bit lower. We're going to come all the way down to about as low as this torque wrench goes, which is 15. I think I got a 1/4 inch torque wrench somewhere, but let's see how this feels. Yeah, dang. I'm going to go around the case a little bit before since I can't go any lower than 15. Alright, we're going to go ahead and send it. There we go, 15 foot-pounds. That feels pretty good. So I'm going to jump all the way across to this side. Okay, I'm going to hit the dowel pins. Hit this dowel pin. Okay, we're going to call that done. Assembled for the most part. Now, if you want to stick around, I'm going to go over some information on these seals. I went ahead and knocked in a couple of the seals off camera. This brake drum seal, shaft seal, whatever, and one of these axle seals. So I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to demonstrate installing the other axle seal and maybe one other seal. But more importantly, I go over part numbers for all these seals. So stick around if you want to see that. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Please like the video, consider subscribing, smash the bell, because what the hell, and toodles. Alright, thanks for sticking around. Let's get this transaxle flipped over. Okay, Okay, we interrupt this video to show you something. Changing the axle seals on these case halves before I start assembly. I got this one out real easy, so I just wanted to show you what I did. There's all kinds of tricks to doing this. You can put a little wood screw or self-tapping screw in here and yank it out. But these, or at least the other one, just popped right out. I just took one screwdriver, kind of used that as a place to pivot on, and just kind of got up underneath the seal, and boom, just like that, pops right out. Now then, this is what I ran across. The part number for these axle seals, and mine's a later model transmission or transaxle, is a 9876, okay? And that is a SKF part number. I got some before that. Let me see if I can find them. Okay, this part number is a national oil seal, and it's a 472311. 472311. These did not fit my later model. From the research I've done, there are these two different part numbers, and depending on what age your unit is, and I can't tell you when they switched, so just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. If you order axle seals for your transaxle and they come up incorrect, well, you got to try the other number. So one more time, for the older units, it takes the national oil seals, 472311. But this particular unit, it's a newer one, I believe it's out of a 98. I can't be 100% sure on that because there's some tomfoolery going on with this garden tractor. It is a SKF part number 9876. Again, that's for the newer. Don't know what year they started that. But what I'm going to do, and I will probably end up doing this off camera because I'm not ready right now, but what I like to do on the new seals is just take a very thin layer of RTV gasket maker, just a skim coat, just a very light, and then I'll go ahead and drive that in, make sure this hole's nice and clean, and then when I go to actually slide the axle shafts through, I'll put a little bit of light oil on the inside diameter, the little rubber part of the seal, and that'll help from tearing or rolling this rubber part back. There's a little spring in there, it goes all the way around that lip. If it gets snagged on the axle shaft, it can pull that spring out of place, and then you're going to have a leak. So a little bit of oil on that lip of the seal, the rubber part on the inside diameter. Lube that up and just very carefully slide those axle shafts home. And actually what I might do is leave these seals out until after the transaxle is all assembled and the differential and axles are in, and then I might drive these in. That way I can make sure that I get them over the axle shaft. Yeah, now that I think about it, that's probably what I'm going to do. So we're going to return you back to the video you were watching. Hope this helps. Here's one of the other axle seals. Part number 9876 from SKF. We'll put just a very light film. Actually, I'll probably do that once I get it past this axle shaft. I'm kind of wish I'd have put these on before sliding the axles through, because I think the axles coming this way, it's less likely to roll the seal, but it is what it is. Got a little oil right here, a little bit on my finger, and I'm going to lubricate that lip. I'm going to lubricate the end of this axle real good. And there's this little snap ring groove. I'm going to lubricate past it. And then I need a little bit more oil. Lubricate the axle itself. Okay. Very, very, very carefully. Get that lip of the seal past these splines. And you got to get it past the snap ring groove. Same thing, you got to get it past those splines. And I don't see. Take a look. Yeah, doesn't look like I rolled it, so that's good. And then there we go. Going to wipe off the outside of this seal. Now I usually put a little bit of silicone RTV, but I've seen other people do it without, and it does have a coating, so you know what, we're just going to send it without doing that. Now what I learned on the other one is a 1-inch pipe, coupler specifically, and then a 1-inch pipe. That is a perfect seal driver for this seal. Okay. Put this in my bucket. Perfect. And that's how you install the seal. Now these other seals are going to be exactly the same process, so I'm going to cut the video here. Once again, thanks for watching. Like the video, please subscribe. Smash the bell, because what the hell. And toodles. Okay, part numbers on these seals. This is the side of the transmission that has the brake on it. Okay, where the shaft for the brake comes through. That takes a National Oil Seals 470954. 470954. Trying to make sure I get it in frame. Okay, that is for the brake shaft, brake input shaft, whatever. For your high-low shift, where the shaft for the high-low shifter comes through, it is an SKF 4909. SKF 4909. And then for your input shaft, this is your pulley, the input pulley, where the input shaft comes through. That is a National Oil Seals 471466. National 471466.